Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Okay, listen, we're going to jump right into this immediately because today we are looking at a device that is making some absolutely massive waves. We're breaking down the Infinix GT50 Pro. And really, the big question we're trying to answer today is this: can a smartphone that starts at just $370 actually compete with the premium heavyweight titans of the mobile gaming world? I mean, we're talking proper liquid cooling, physical gaming triggers, and flagship-level screens. It sounds completely too good to be true, right? Well, we've come through the data to see exactly where this phone shines and, of course, where it cuts corners to hit that incredibly low price point. So here is our roadmap for today. First, a serious bang for buck. Second, unpacking the gaming arsenal. Third, real-world gaming performance. Fourth, everyday use and compromises. And finally, number 5, the final verdict. Let's get right into it. Section 1. A serious bang for buck. Defying the price tag. Now, to really understand why the Infinix GT50 Pro is turning so many heads right now, you kind of have to look at the current mobile gaming landscape. You know how it is. Dedicated gaming phones are notoriously expensive. They routinely cross that $1,000 mark just to give you the thermal management and sheer power needed for those long sessions. But then the Infinix shows up with massive shock value, starting at roughly $370. To put that into perspective for a second, the source points out that the only other proper liquid-cooled gaming phone out there right now is the Red Magic 11 Pro, which is already considered a pretty well-priced flagship. And the Infinix is sitting at literally half the cost of its premium competitor. I mean, offering physical liquid cooling at a sub-$400 price point, that's highly unusual, and it makes this a really serious proposition for budget-conscious gamers. Section 2. Unpacking the gaming arsenal. Tools for the mobile gamer. So if a company is going to promise flagship-level gaming experiences for under $400, they absolutely have to have the hardware to back it up, right? And the most crucial part of that is thermal management. Without it, your gaming phone is just going to throttle and lag. So Infinix uses something they call hydro-low liquid cooling. Now, stripping away all the flashy marketing jargon, what this actually is a physical liquid cooling system driven by a dual ceramic micropump. And get this, you can actually see the liquid cooling system right through the back of the phone. It's paired with Infinix's largest ever 3D vapor chamber, and this whole system constantly circulates fluid to pull heat away from the processor. You can even go into the settings and manually adjust the flow rates of the pump. It is completely designed to keep the phone cool during those intense, hours-long gaming grinds. But look, hardware is only half the battle. The software has to optimize it. Infinix handles this with a dedicated gaming hub they call X Arena. And this isn't just, a simple folder for your apps. Actually, it acts as a total control center. When you're in a game, you can just swipe to pull up a panel to toggle performance modes, tweak your haptic feedback, and most importantly, map the Pressure Sense GT triggers. These are physical triggers right on the side of the phone. The source notes that they're highly responsive, and when you set them to a single press, they give the phone this fantastic, almost controller-like feel that gives you a very real, tangible edge in competitive games. And honestly, just look at the rest of this hardware. We're getting a massive 6,500 milliamp hour battery, which is a nice upgrade from last year, by the way. It supports 45-watt wired charging. The display, it's a 6.78-inch AMOLED panel that hits a remarkably bright 4,500 nits of peak brightness, along with a blazing fast 144 Hz refresh rate. And driving this whole operation is the MediaTek Dimensity 8400 Ultimate chip, paired with 12 gigs of high-speed RAM and up to 512 gigs of storage. It's just an incredible amount of horsepower packed into a budget frame. Now, hold on. There is one really important caveat we need to talk about. The phone itself doesn't actually have a built-in cooling fan, nor does it have built-in magnets. But for an extra $30, you can grab the GT MagCharge Cooler 2.0 bundle. This gives you a hard shell case that adds those magnets, allowing you to just snap on an active cooling fan that spins at a wild 5,700 RPM. And what's absolutely vital here for serious gamers is that this cooler offers wireless bypass charging. What that means is the power bypasses the battery entirely and goes straight to the motherboard. So it keeps the device way cooler and preserves your battery health while you play. A real game changer. Section 3. Real-world gaming performance. Pushing the frames. Okay, so specs on paper are great, but they don't always translate to how the phone feels in your hands. We need to see how that sub-flagship MediaTek chip actually handles the most demanding mobile titles out today. So let's look at the hard benchmark data. In Genshin Impact, with all the in-game graphical settings completely maxed out, the GT 50 Pro averaged a perfectly solid 60 frames per second. It's natively capped there, but maintaining that max consistently, that is flagship-level stability. Moving over to Withering Waves, which is pretty widely considered the ultimate demanding benchmark for mobile right now. The phone hovered between 50 and 60 FPS the entire time, and for you competitive shooter fans, Call of Duty Mobile ran at a staggering 142 frames per second when set to medium graphics, totally utilizing that beautiful 144Hz display. Which leads us perfectly into this direct quote from the source's analysis. They flat out stated, "It plays games like an absolute champion. I didn't have any issues with it at all when gaming." So sure, it might not break world benchmark record scores because of its sub-flagship chipset, but its real-world performance is exceptional. The liquid cooling really keeps the heat manageable, and the phone stays snappy and super responsive.
Section 4. Everyday use and compromises, where the corners are cut. All right, so to build a $370 gaming phone, sacrifices have to be made somewhere, right? Let's objectively examine them. But before we get to the bad, outside of gaming, this thing actually functions surprisingly well as a daily driver. Out of the box, it runs XOS 16 over Android 16. It's very gamer-themed for sure, but it's highly customizable. It features a built-in AI assistant called Folax, which impressively integrates major AI models without you needing to download extra apps or pay for subscriptions. Plus, Infinix promises 3 years of major OS updates, and they even toss in handy features like an IR blaster and NFC, so honestly, the software fundamentals are pretty rock solid.
But here is where we hit that first major compromise, the build reality. The phone features these symmetrical, retro lines and totally looks like it has a carbon fiber and metal construction. But the reality? The back plate and those flat side rails are completely plastic. It might feel relatively solid and mimic the look of metal perfectly, but it definitely lacks that premium cold glass and aluminum feel. Also, while it does have an optical under-display fingerprint sensor, the source makes a point to note that it's positioned awkwardly low on the screen, which can get a bit annoying for your everyday unlocking. And then, well, we get to the cameras. The source summed up the setup pretty bluntly, calling it nothing really to write home about. And that makes sense, right? This phone is built from the ground up for gamers, not photographers, and the camera setup heavily reflects that priority. Let's break down exactly what that means in practice. The good news is the 50-megapixel main sensor with optical image stabilization takes totally fine photos for casual everyday use. It handles a 2x crop-in surprisingly well, and the 13-megapixel selfies are actually pretty great, even in portrait mode. But the bad news? The 8-megapixel ultrawide is super grainy, especially at night. But the absolute biggest weak point here is video recording. Panning just isn't smooth, flickering is a really noticeable issue, and the video stabilization is frankly subpar. If you are a mobile videographer, this device is absolutely not the one for you.
Section 5. The final verdict. Should the giants worry?
So we have all the pieces of the puzzle now to answer our initial question. Should premium giants like Red Magic be looking over their shoulders at this budget disruptor? Ultimately, it all comes down to true trade-offs. For $370, you're getting top-tier gaming frame rates, proper visible liquid cooling, and highly responsive physical touch triggers. You get a massive battery and a gorgeous 144Hz display. But to get there, you're sacrificing premium glass and metal materials, you miss out on the absolute top-end flagship CPU, you don't get a built-in cooling fan inside the device itself, and you certainly don't get the uninterrupted all-screen experience of an under-display selfie camera. They're simply operating in different lanes. The source concludes that while Red Magic doesn't necessarily need to panic, Infinix has absolutely completely nailed their target demographic, gamers on a budget. Which leaves us with one final thought to ponder. If a $370 phone can push the exact same frame rates in your favorite games as a phone that costs literally double, is premium build quality and a slightly better camera really worth that massive price hike? I guess it all comes down to what you prioritize in your pocket. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.